Have you ever caught someone secretly scrolling their phone during one of your sessions? Or worse, have you heard that dreaded awkward silence when you ask a question? If you're worried that your training or your meeting is boring, don't worry. You're about to turn any boring content into something your audience loves and without adding extra stress. We've all felt that panic when delivering a boring topic, and especially when you look out and you can just see your audience mentally checking out. But the good news is you don't need hours and hours of prep time, and you don't need fancy, expensive equipment. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to transform even your driest content into fun and engaging activities your participants actually want to join. Hey, it's Jeff with yourlearningcareer.com. I have over 25 years of learning and development experience with companies like Walt Disney World, IBM, United Healthcare. So I've turned hundreds of boring topics into fun and memorable experiences, and I promise you can too. The first one I want to talk about is making it into a game. Now, first, let me give you the scenario. When I worked at a hospital system, I was responsible for teaching the new employee orientation. And as part of that, we had lots and lots of, let's face it, boring topics around safety. One in particular was a section on tuberculosis. So my part initially, when I first took it over, it was basically just a bunch of slides with information about tuberculosis. Like what are the symptoms? How do you treat it? What are the policies? This kind of thing. So it was just a really boring lecture. And that was one where I said, you know what? This needs something. What can I do with this? And what I ended up doing was creating a game called TB Feud. So I basically took the idea of Family Feud, the game show, and I created slides that looked like the game board for Family Feud, and I called it TB Feud. So instead of just this slide with here are the symptoms of tuberculosis, I was asking my participants, my learners, okay guys, top 6 answers on the board. What are the symptoms of tuberculosis? And then I would get answers. And it was a lot of fun because it let us see how much they already knew about the topic. But then also when they would get it wrong, I had strikes. I would have a strike come up if they got it wrong. And then that was a great way to see what they didn't know about the topic. And it really helped. Well, first of all, it got everybody involved. Everyone had a great time. They loved it. It was lots of fun. But then it also helped when the nurses would take over the conversation. It was a really fun callback for them when they started going into more detail. They say, hey, we noticed you said da 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 and it was wrong. Do you know why it was wrong? So it really opened up the door for my subject matter experts as well. So ever since then, that's been one of my favorite techniques to use. Now, if you're interested, I will put links in the description below because I mentioned I made a Family Feud game, and since then I've built many different game templates and things like that. So if you want to have a look at those, I will put links in the description below. The second technique I want to talk about is basically a teach back, and you're probably already familiar with what a teach back is. Basically, it's when maybe you give some of the material to your participants, to your learners, you have them look it over, and then they are responsible for presenting it to the rest of the class. And if you can do just a straight teach back like that, it can work really well. Like for example, when I was working for United Healthcare and we had to teach various insurance products, obviously insurance isn't the most exciting topic in the world. And we would often use teach backs where we would, if we had like 3 products we wanted people to learn about, we would say, okay, Group 1, you're responsible for dental. Group 2, you're going to be responsible for vision. Group 3, you're going to be responsible for financial protection. And basically, we would give them materials to read. They would look it over and then discuss it, and then they would present to the rest of the class. So that can be a really effective way to present some, maybe drier material, because then it's not just you up there lecturing, they're hearing it from each other, they're actually discussing it. Now, If you want to take it a step further, something I like to do with my groups, if it's appropriate, you have to know your audience, but one of the things I did in that same new employee orientation was I would do sort of a funner version of the teach back. So I would give the groups different topics, like there were things like fire safety and business practices and things like that, where I gave the groups the topic. But instead of just a regular present the information back to the class, I challenged them to come up with a creative way to present it. So I would say, okay, you can do a commercial, a TV commercial, a movie promo, a skit, a role play, a rap, a poem, a song. I gave them different examples. And then I would give them time to work on it, and then they would present. And that was awesome. They had so much fun with it. And I think I even had more fun than they did, because watching what they came up with, like these, these really fun raps on fire safety, for example. People just really got into it. They had a lot of fun. Now, a third technique I want to talk about, this was one I used. I worked at a nonprofit. And one of the topics that we had to teach from time to time was a session on EEO law. That's equal employment opportunity. Wow, talk about boring. And the way it was set up, it was your typical, it was just like this big bunch of slides with a whole bunch of text on the slide. And the way it had been traditionally taught was the instructor, the facilitator would get up and they would just talk through slide after slide after slide. And I said, oh no, I can't. There's gotta be a better way. What I did in that situation was I knew, EEO law is there to protect people at the workplace. And I knew there were probably some really interesting examples in court cases. So I went out and I looked up various real court cases. And I found some of the more interesting ones. And I presented those to the class. I said, okay, let me tell you this situation. And I would present an example. And then I would say to the class, what do you think? So I didn't reveal anything about how the case ended. I first asked the class, what do you think? Did the EEO law come into play here or not? And it really created a lot of good discussion. Sometimes they would get it right, and then sometimes they'd get it wrong. And that was fine too. I'd say, well, I know why you thought that, but here's why that didn't go that way. On the surface, EEO, how boring. But by using actual court cases like that, it really brought it to life and made it much more interesting. As you can see, these techniques, like I said, they are low stress ways to add fun into your boring topic. They don't take a ton of time, and there's no fancy equipment or anything expensive that you have to use. Now, if you're worried about a game show and you're thinking, well, wait a minute, I'd love to do a Family Feud game, but I don't have time to build that. I've got great news for you. I actually have a free template for PowerPoint for Family Feud, and I'm going to share a link to that in the description below. I also have a video showing you how to use it, so you can check that out here. And for those of you who are Google Slides people, I have a Google Slides version. Now that one is for sale in the store, but I also have a video, and you can check that video right here. Thanks as always for watching, and we'll see you next time.